All right, let's get right into it. India is a place of incredible contrasts, right? It's where the super advanced future and the distant past seem to be happening all at once. And nowhere is this paradox more jarring, more, well, frustrating than when you look at its infrastructure.
I mean, on one hand, India is literally making history. We're talking about being the first nation ever to land on the south pole of the moon, reaching Mars on its very first try. These are achievements that many so-called developed nations haven't even pulled off. But then, you come back down to Earth, and the daily reality can be a serious grind. India is the second most congested country in Asia. Commutes are a nightmare, and sometimes brand new projects crumble before they're even officially open.
So, that's the big question we're tackling in this explainer. How can this possibly be? How can a country with the brain power to conquer outer space struggle so badly with something as basic as building a road or a bridge that actually lasts? What is going on?
Well, the truth is, it's not just one thing. It's not one bad company or one corrupt official you can point to. It is a systemic problem, a total breakdown across 5 critical stages that basically sabotages projects from the moment they're imagined.
So what are these 5 failing pillars? Well, first you've got flawed planning, then land acquisition gridlock, then what I call the lowest bid trap, and the bureaucratic maze. And the 5th one? The neglect of maintenance. This one is a huge problem that affects even the projects that somehow make it to the finish line. We'll get to that later, but for now, let's start right at the beginning.
So, pillar number 1, planning. And here's where it gets wild. A lot of these huge projects are doomed to fail before a single shovel ever hits the ground. It all comes down to these initial planning documents. They're called Detailed Project Reports, or DPRs. And they are often shockingly slow and just plain wrong. Get this, a 2022 report found that a massive 35% of major infrastructure projects were stuck simply because their planning reports weren't done right.
And hey, even if you got a good plan, politics can throw a wrench in the works for decades. Just look at the Sardar Sarovar Dam. It was first inaugurated by Prime Minister Nehru way back in 1961. But because of political fights over water between 3 different states, the project was put on ice for an unbelievable 56 years. It was finally finished in 2017. 56 years for one dam.
All right, on to pillar 2, acquiring land. This is the stage where so many big, ambitious projects just slam on the brakes. You want to build a highway, a railway, an airport, anything? You need land. And actually getting that land is one of the biggest hurdles in the entire system.
Let's take the much-hyped Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train. That was supposed to be finished by 2022. But by that deadline, guess what? The government had only managed to get its hands on 67% of the land it needed. And because of that delay, the project's cost has shot up by 83%. And the new finish line? Well, it's been pushed all the way to 2029, at least.
Okay, now for pillar 3, tendering. And this is where things get really fascinating and, frankly, a little infuriating. In India, most government contracts are given out using what's called the L1 bidding system. Now, on the surface, it sounds fair, right? The contract goes to whoever submits the lowest bid. But this obsession with cheapest has absolutely disastrous results. And this right here shows you the problem perfectly. Let's say a really high-quality company, contractor A, bids 10 crore for a project. But then another company, contractor B, swoops in with a bid of just 6 crore. Under the L1 system, contractor B gets the job almost every single time, even if they have a terrible track record. To even have a chance at winning, companies are forced to bid ridiculously low, sometimes as much as 48% below what the project is actually estimated to cost.
And that brings up a really obvious question. If a job is worth 10 crore and you agree to do it for 6, how on earth do you make a profit? The answer is simple and scary. You cut corners. You use cheaper materials. You use lower quality equipment. The contractor walks away with their profit, but the public is left with infrastructure that's poorly built and often really dangerous.
And believe me, this isn't just a theory. This has real tragic consequences. In 2016, the Vivekananda flyover in Kolkata collapsed while it was still being built. 26 people lost their lives. The investigation found that, yep, the contract was given to the lowest bidder, and there were serious problems with the quality of the materials and the construction itself.
Okay, let's talk about pillar 4, the bureaucratic maze. So, even if you have a great plan and a decent contract, your project can still get hopelessly lost in red tape. Getting all the necessary approvals from dozens of different government agencies, we're talking everyone from the forest department to the railways, it's a nightmare. And it's mostly because they just don't talk to each other. You want the perfect, almost comical example of this? Look at Mumbai's Gokhali Bridge. It was built to connect to a flyover that was already there. Simple enough. But the new bridge ended up being built 6 feet higher than the flyover it was supposed to connect to. How does that even happen? Well, halfway through the project, the Railways Department changed a rule and said their bridges needed to be higher. So they raised their part. But apparently, nobody bothered to tell the department building the road that connects to it. You can't make this stuff up. So after hearing about all those roadblocks, you might be feeling a bit down. But here's the good news. These are not new problems. Other countries have faced the exact same challenges. And, more importantly, they've figured out some pretty brilliant ways to solve them. So, what can we learn?
Let's start with that land acquisition nightmare. South Korea solved this with a genius idea called the Land Readjustment System, or LRD. Instead of the government trying to buy land from farmers with cash, which always leads to fights, the Korean government does something totally different. They pool all the land, ask the owners to chip in about 30–40% of it for public stuff like roads and parks, and then they give the remaining 60% back to the original owners.
Now, you're probably thinking, why would anyone agree to get less land back? Well, here's the kicker. The land they get back is now fully developed. It has roads, water, electricity. It's prime urban land. So their smaller plot is now worth way more than their entire original farm was. In one region, this model increased land value by 13,000 times over 26 years. It turns farmers into partners in progress, not enemies.
So what about that lowest bid trap? For the answer, we look to Singapore and their quality fee method, or QFM. It completely flips the Indian system on its head. Instead of just looking at the price, their selection is based on a combined score. Quality is worth 70%, and cost is only worth 30%. What this means is that a company with a higher price can, and often does, win the contract if their quality, their experience, and their track record are way better. Singapore gets a simple truth. Cheap work is often the most expensive kind in the long run, once you factor in repairs, delays, and total failures.
So it's pretty clear, right? The problems are deep, but the solutions are actually out there. They're not some big mystery. They've been tested and they work. The path from this frustrating paradox to real, lasting progress, it just requires a totally different way of thinking. The blueprint for change is right here. First, ditch the L1 lowest bid system and bring in a quality-first model like Singapore's. Second, actually make the single-window clearance system work to cut through that bureaucratic mess. And finally, we have to talk about that fifth pillar, maintenance. It has to be a top priority, not something you forget about. Look at Japan. Every bridge and tunnel there has to be inspected every 5 years. It's the law. It's all about building things to last and then actually taking care of them. It's about choosing long-term value over short-term savings.
You know, at the end of the day, this isn't just about cement and steel. It's like the quote says, infrastructure is the nation's momentum. When projects get stuck, when bridges fail, it's not just concrete that's breaking. It's the whole country's forward progress that's grinding to a halt.
And that brings us right back to where we started. India has proven, without a doubt, that it has world-class ambition. It can reach for the moon, it can reach for Mars. So the real question is, when will its roads, its bridges, and its cities finally start to reflect that same incredible ambition?